All right, hello. So my name is Touko Tahkokallio, and so my topic or subject today will be about game development in general level and also about game design. So the topic comes from the fact that some wise man once said that game design or game development is like a combination of art and science. And I will try to leverage that and kind of ponder it a little bit further. And can you claim something like this? All right. So quickly about me. So my background is I'm like a researcher originally. So I did theoretical physics, and then board game design was I still do it, but it was something kind of which led me to this industry. And now I've been 2.5 years in Supercell doing. I was game designer in Heyday and Boom Beach, so which we just launched. But so, just to give you a general idea how games are developed, this is not like this is the only way to do it or anything like that, but just to give you some impression what's the process and what kind of jobs you have there or positions. So there's a game consists of there's the core or this is not in an order of importance, it's just like a way to plot this. So there's always like some game idea, of course, and usually there's a game design. From the position point of view, there might be a game designer, or usually there is a game designer, who takes the responsibility of the game design. And with game design, I mean the mechanics and stuff like that. But in digital world, there's also game programming, and these are very separate things, of course. So it's different to think about the game, and it's different to implement it. So there's a client programmer related to this, so who implements the design or implements the game. And but also in these days, there's a very important in many of the game types. There's this very different kind of like programming skills needed, and those are needed for the server backend programming. And this is something that usually isn't maybe that on the front, or people don't talk about it too much, but it's very important as well to have these scalable systems. And then you have game art, and for that you usually need artists. And you have different kind of artists. You can have a concept artist, 2D artist, 3D artist, whatever. And of course, this is kind of like a team composition, one team composition. And you don't need to have all these. There can be one guy who is doing a solo project, and he is taking responsibility for all of these. He can be a game designer himself. He can be a client programmer. He can do the art, and that's entirely possible. And but these are kind of the cornerstones you need for the game development. In general. All right. But also, there's lots of other things that you need to make game if you think about it just like from the speaker perspective. You need quality assurance, you need marketing, you need team management, maybe some supporting things like legal, finance. Also, what's missing here is maybe some data analyzing things and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a big thing. So what I want to say from this is that it's a team job. Yeah, you need all the guys, and especially you need people from different fields of expertise, or you need at least that expertise from different parts. And if you want to make a successful game, these all aspects need to work out really well. So that's the point. Okay, now more about the game design itself. So, because I'm a game designer, like my viewpoint is I can maybe give you some ideas or hints how to be a game designer. Of course, there's as important positions and jobs in the game industry too, which are not part of the game design, but maybe I have something to say about this. So, first thing is that I don't see that there's a one clear path or way how to become a game designer. It's something that game designer needs to have a good understanding of many things. I could say almost everything, but you don't need to know how to code, for example. It's not needed. It's of course good thing if you know it, but it's not needed. There are some qualities that I think will help you in the way. I think it's very important you are obsessed with the games in one way or another. It doesn't mean that you necessarily need to know about all kind of games or you need to play obsessively, but at least you need to think about them all the time. At least it helps. So you kind of, each time you play a game, maybe it's my next slide actually, okay. Yeah, okay, let's go back. So it's kind of mindset, at least for me, it's something that I think about the games all the time. Like if I'm on the bus or somewhere, I try to think about game designs and they are in my head, and that's it's a way to learn the game, understand games is to think about them. So I think it's very important that you kind of think about them. And it helps if you have an analytical mind, kind of you try to break the games to pieces and think about them and see how they work. And this is very important, I think, which is many times maybe not thought about, is that you have to be enthusiastic and persistent. So what I mean with the persistent is that if you have a failure or if you have a success, I think both applies, you don't stop, you continue, you do the next project, and because it's a kind of like a iterative process. You learn when you fail or when you have a success, and if you want to leverage that, you have to go to the next step and do the next game. So I've seen many times that people do something and then they stop because they just want to like improve what they have done or just like play with it. But you should always go to the next game and do the next game because that's how you learn. So it's a process. It's very important to have this open and flexible mindset. So there are always things that you have to be open to the feedback and hear the comments and think about like, will it help for my game or will it help for the game to be better? And usually, because you can never see it all yourself, so you can see how other people react, what they think about it, and that if you can kind of be with an open mind, you can really learn and improve the game. Game design is also about social skills, or it's very important because it's a team job, and you game designer, many times it's kind of, you're in the between of the game programming and game art and trying to communicate and get the package together in one way or another. So you need to really be a team player, I think. And also about understanding how different people think when you make the games. So usually some people make the games only for themselves, and if you do that, you have this one favorite type of game genre, and you try to make games for that genre. I think it might work in some cases, but usually, of course, I think it's a good idea to try out your go out from your comfort zone maybe a little bit and try out like what works for the other people. I think like game design is all about making the games for the market. You think about what's your target group, what are the players I'm making this game, and trying to find those kind of qualities that work for that type of gamers. So it's not about making the game only for you. Of course, if there's a target group that resonates with you, that's good, and you can leverage that. But in general, it's more about like making the game for the players who actually will play the game. And this understanding how different people think is very important in that way. Also, it helps if you have this general knowledge of things, like you know about history, you know about pop culture, you know all about that. And this is something that can be learned, just keeping your eyes open and watching how the world is, it will help you. Okay, very generic answer, but I think there's at least part truth here. And there are some other qualities as well, and these are just that came into my mind. But yeah, maybe what I want to emphasize the most is that game design is kind of like a practice or craft that you learn when you do it. So it's all about your brain, and your brain is like a muscle, so you have to train it. And how you train it is that you make games. And it's very difficult actually in the digital world to make games, because big games, they need that programming, they need that art. So actually it's very difficult to learn by doing one project and then going to another project, because projects can take years. So how do you, as a game designer, if you want to improve, you have to have many different projects. And there are a few ways. Of course, you can learn to code yourself and do these small prototypes and try out that way, like really do the games and see how they work out. But actually, for me at least, the best way has been doing board games, because that's so fast. You can do one game in a night and next day do another one. And then you see how it fails or how it works out and what works and what's not. And that's kind of, you can iterate and learn and be better after you do it for many times. And 10,000 hour rule is that I think it applies to almost anything. So to be good, you really have to practice. When you play a game, also, you should not just play the game, but also like think about why there are these decisions. Usually there are some reasons why a game works, how it does. And if you learn to understand those reasons, it will help you. You can kind of get a bigger tool set for your own game design projects and understand maybe the reasons why some choices was made. This next tip is just like read books, I mean game design books. Of course, reading books is always good, but reading game design books, following game design blogs, listen to podcasts, to get this kind of bigger picture about the development and game design scene is I think, important. And of course, there are many great places to really study this as well, as in Aalto, for example, and that of course helps. But still, like even with those course studies used, I think you have to have this kind of, it's not just like I'll do this study and after that I'm ready. It's kind of like an ongoing project, and you can have these supporting things that will help you to get yourselves ready for making games. Okay, now to the kind of like thinking, what is really, when you create a game, is it the art? And when you're creating a game, it's all about creating an experience and feelings to the other players to enjoy. And I think this is, of course, one of the fundamental things about game, is that you're really creating something for the others that they should enjoy. That's the first principle. And I think it's very close what art tries to do as well. Of course, there's some other qualities for art, but this is one of the things, important things. And usually it's a very audiovisual experience, so it's kind of like close to media, this kind of new media. And the skills that you need when you're making a game, you need to be creative and use your imagination, which is very arty thing, I think. And you need to have a strong vision, at least in the very beginning, and that will keep the core together. When you start to make a game, you need to have kind of clear idea what you're going to do, and even though it will change along the way, you still need that vision. And you need to trust your intuition, because there is no one formula for success, although some people might think there is. Every game is different, and for each game you need to do the choices again and see how it goes. So these are very intuitive. There's no one way to learn it except maybe trying out yourself and getting better at it. But I think these are very close to what you need in art when you're creating a piece of art. But there's also like parts that fit more to the science, science thingy. And for example, it's good to be analytical, because games are experiences, and they are bad experiences if they are not in a balance, and it can break the game and it can break the fun. So you need to have this analytical mindset that you can crunch the numbers to some degree and see what you really need to do in order for the game to work and be meaningful. And also this is a bit related to the what's in the up, but I think it's still different. You need to understand the game dynamics, and it's a bit like an intuition that you learn to do, but it has some qualities similar to understanding science. So games are like dynamical systems where you have these certain rules, and the system will evolve according to these rules. So it's very dynamical, and when you create these dynamics, you're creating basically the rules for the system, and to some degree have some understanding of this is I think important, because if you can beforehand know what the game will be, actually, you make the rules and then you see how it plays out. But if you can think it in your head how it will play out, you don't have to make those mistakes, all of them at least. You can avoid a few of those. All right, and this idea that you can test your ideas, learn and iterate, I think it's very scientific. It's kind of like you have a hypothesis and you test it out and see if it works or not, and then you make a new one. And this is basically the same in games. And game designing is mostly about problem solving. So I had the visions in the last slide, and you start with the vision usually, but then after that it's all about problem solving. So when you're creating that vision, you need to solve, it's constantly you're facing with new problems, and you think about how to solve these problems. And well, same in science. So we have these two aspects of game design or game development, and we have the artistic aspect and we have the analytical aspect, and which would be the science thing. And they play together, so I'm not saying it's one of those, but it's something in between, and you need both these skills in game development. But there's also a third thing, actually, which I think is even more important these days, and it's the business side. So these three things are, I think, they're like in the core and give you these are the basic principles where you build your game. So games now, you cannot do them in vacuum, at least. The free-to-play chains, I think you all know at some degree what is free-to-play. So there's games that you can play for free, and you can make money with in-app purchases and during the game, when playing the game. So these are kind of integrated things, and now with the free-to-play chains, people and the game design and game development needs to take this business already into account when they're making those decisions how the game should be done. And this wasn't so strong in the past, because you just made a game and then you put a price tag on it and put it on the shelf and someone bought it. But now you really have to think about how to get the income when players are playing the game, so it's very different. And this is actually the reason why I wanted to say it in here, Aalto, because I think it's quite nice that in Aalto you have all these three aspects in here into your studies. So you have the artist thing, you have the engineering background, and then you have the business side. So I think game design and game development really fits Aalto program quite well because of these three things. Yeah, that's all I had to say. Thank you. So I hope you have some questions, because we have few minutes. 3 minutes.